Tracking another round of damaging winds and more flooding with storms number 2 and 3 on the way. A very active Pacific with atmospheric rivers that just keep hitting California. Here's a look at the storm timeline. And as you can see, we're going to take it from Sunday all the way into next week. Sunday night is when the rain and snow develop and increasing winds, which will be a huge concern into early Monday morning. Heavy rain and snow and the damaging winds are going to combine for an extreme impact day. Leading into Tuesday, that's when our flooding concerns go up. More rain and snow plus the runoff from what will be rain on top of snow in the Sierra. Plus next week, multiple rounds of rain and snow continuing in the pipeline. And as you can see, we are just all lit up with watches and warnings throughout the entire state. We're going to focus on the high wind warning. That is what has been causing the most damage here with the recent storms, especially with widespread power outages, trees that are coming down with the saturated ground. We're talking trees that are completely taking out houses and cars that are parked on the street. And we've got another round into early Monday morning. It all starts up at midnight, takes us through the afternoon with sustained winds 25 to 40 miles per hour, but gusts at 45 to 65 miles per hour. And again, widespread power outages possible, not just in the Sierra, but we're going to take that all the way into the valley. Now you can see our peak wind gusts from our Saturday storm into early Sunday. We're closer to about 35 to 45 plus miles per hour in the northern San Joaquin Valley, closer to 60 across the coast. 47 mile per hour peak wind gusts for Sacramento Executive, but we did see some isolated areas that got over 60 miles per hour, and that's where we're headed again for tonight into early tomorrow. You can see at midnight, things are starting to ramp up here through the valley and the foothills, continuing to increase by 3 a.m. Wind gusts closer to about 40 to 45 miles per hour throughout the entire valley, parts of the foothills. And for the Sierra, we're already over 50 mile per hour wind gusts, potentially over 100 miles per hour on some of the ridges. By 5 a.m., isolated areas at about 60 to 65 mile per hour peak wind gusts, and then things will start to wind down. But we're going to keep it pretty strong here through 7 a.m. until we get some quieter conditions coming our way during the afternoon. That's when that threshold starts to decrease for our high wind warning, and we'll see that expire just after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But again, widespread power outages possible throughout the region tonight into early Monday. You can see it here on our power outage map, including the foothills and the Sierra as well. It'll be a busy night and morning for our Sunday night and morning for all of our emergency officials, undoubtedly. Getting ready is what we can do right now. We can charge all of our devices, including our computers, our laptops and phones, as well as a car. If you have one that is an electric charged car, fill up the car. Indeed, being prepared for any flooding events. Get those important documents ready, as well as our to-go bag, and remembering pets as well. Want to make sure you have any of the carrier's ID tags, and also the food and toys, and getting ready to evacuate everybody in the need to because of flooding. In terms of our rain, it is going to be heavier than what we saw last night. This last storm was mainly a wind event, not as much on the heavy rain side, which is good because it allowed some of that water to recede. But now we get this bigger storm heading our way. So it's really the combination of the wind and the rain that comes in with this one that makes it that extreme impact storm. It all is in conjunction and almost in sequence with that strongest winds. That's when we start to see the heaviest bands of rain coming through as well. It'll initially be snow in the Sierra, and that's a really key point here and how this is going to unfold, because as soon as we start to see rain on top of snow, down comes the runoff, gravity taking it downstream and filling many of our waterways, which will eventually make it into the valley. So at 7 a.m., that's when we start to see that snow line creeping up higher and higher, meaning rain on top of snow. And we still continue to see areas of moderate to heavy rain in the valley. It's very likely we'll see street flooding at this point and possibility of roadway flooding. Turn around, don't drown. Time and time again, that is the message that we continue to say, especially when we talk about flooding concerns. Now, this has a deep moisture tap all the way in the Pacific, and it has a warm component to it. That's why we're going to pull in a lot of that warmth and bring up those snow levels during the day on Monday, but it also has a lot more moisture than the last storm system. So our flood watch will continue through Wednesday. Again, we talked about rainfall and runoff, street flooding, creeks and streams, and we're going to add in the possibility of some river flooding. We have 10 rivers that are above flood stage already, 27 above monitor, and then 63 with normal conditions. That's throughout the entire state. I zoomed in just a little bit closer to our forecast area just so that we can get an idea of what we're looking at here. One that we've been covering very closely is the COSUMNES River at Michigan Bar. So much of that area already flooded, and it hasn't even reached its crest yet. That happens on Monday afternoon. So tomorrow afternoon comes down a little bit, then picks back up, not necessarily well above that flood stage and certainly not at a record high, but it is going to have some concerns there on the COSUMNES. The other one that we're going to be watching isn't necessarily one that's expected to flood, but the Sacramento River at I Street is a very important key area for the Department of Water Resources because they will open the Sacramento Weir once that stage gets at 29.87 feet. Now, that is new, that data point as of 2017. They used to have it a little bit lower. They moved it up just slightly, and it looks like the crest is going to be at 29.8 feet. So it's very possible they'll be adjusting the Sacramento Weir, perhaps opening a few of those gates. It's something we are going to be watching very closely. Moving on to the Sierra, winter storm warning in effect. We've got major mountain impacts, anywhere from 3 to 8 feet of new snow. That's right, I said feet, not inches of snow. So many people, sometimes I do these extended weather hits and they say, oh, she said feet, not inches. No, this is feet of snow in the Sierra with gusts over 80 miles per hour, power outages possible up there, and travel hazardous. Also, any of the ski resorts up there, avalanche watch is in effect and through Wednesday morning. This is for the backcountry, and it's because of heavy rain and snow with gale force winds, widespread avalanche activity possible throughout the Sierra until Wednesday morning. So again, hazardous driving conditions in the Sierra, near whiteout conditions, major travel delays, road closures possible, and chain controls very likely. So travel is highly discouraged. Want to keep those roads clear so emergency officials, again, can do their job and get to people that absolutely need help. As far as those snow level changes, I mentioned this a little bit just a moment ago, but here's the details on what we're expecting. On 80 and 50, we'll start it off at about 6,000 to 6,300 feet. That's pretty normal for a storm system, but when we start to see that warmth come in, we'll see that snow line go up to about 7,300 to 7,600 feet. That will put it slightly above the passes there. And then that cold air starts to work in on Tuesday. That'll bring that snow line back down to about 5,000 to 5,600 feet on Tuesday afternoon. And then Wednesday, it really comes crashing down here. That's when we lose more of that moisture tap. We'll still have some precipitation coming in, but our snow line drops to about 4,000 feet, giving a nice little snow dusting near Pollock Pines and Blue Canyon as well. So total accumulation is going to be tough to measure just simply because we are going to be getting that mix of rain and snow. But places that have a steady snow are going to be the ones that are going to be seeing closer to that 8-foot possibility for total snow accumulation, whereas those lower elevations are going to have that mix of rain and snow, some melting, then snow coming in, melting and snow coming in again. Rainfall totals, this is just since through Tuesday. We're going to have anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 inches of rain, closer to 3 inches of rain for Vacaville. And then as we gear up towards the foothills, anywhere from about 4 to almost 7 inches of rain in some pockets of the foothills. Taking us through the timeline of the couple of storm systems that lead us off for the work week. The first one moving in overnight Sunday through Monday with the heaviest rain during the early morning hours of Monday. Snow initially to start us off in the Sierra, but once that warmer air works in, we will see that snow line come up, and then it will come back down on Tuesday as some colder air moves into this storm system. That will also destabilize the atmosphere, giving us a chance of thunderstorms on Tuesday. But again, the bigger news on that is that snow level will start to come down and take some pressure off of the runoff. On Wednesday, we have a storm system geared up to hit us. It's just that it's colder, so isn't quite as potent. But then we get ready for Friday and Saturday's storm, which again has a lot of moisture and renewed flooding concerns. The impacts Monday through Tuesday, all in the extreme category: rain, snow, wind, travel, flooding. We're going to be tracking it all into our Monday. The other part of this story, and I've gotten a lot of questions on this, how is this helping our drought situation? Well, it's not hurting. It's just that we don't want too much at one time because we don't want that all to become runoff. We want to be able to store that water in the places that we've built the capacity to store it, being our reservoirs and also our groundwater. How much can we recharge? You know, when water stands on the ground, it actually starts to infiltrate. And so it helps us to get that groundwater, the water beneath our feet, back up to a place where we can tap into it during extreme drought. So we are starting to see some improvement here. We've had rain every single day of the month in 2023. So our totals are starting to look pretty good here. We just need a little bit of break, and that's key to keep us out of the flooding category, but also help to bring us out of that drought category. So we just want to get that perfect sweet spot there between storm systems and a break in between. Here's where the numbers stand since October 1st. That's the beginning of the water year. That'll be the benchmark for what we measure our entire water year on. And every one of us is above average right now. Some of the bigger spots are going to be right along that 80-50 corridor here, but certainly starting to see some nice growth in the northern part of the state, the places that were actually hardest hit by the last drought. As far as our snowpack, numbers are just unbelievable right now. About 150 to over 200% of average. If we were not to get any more snow, the Southern Sierra would reach our 90% of average for our April 1st date, which is pretty much the last date that we measure snowpack, just simply because after that, the pipeline shuts down and it's too warm for mostly snow in the Sierra. So our statewide average is at 77% of that April 1st date, and then almost 190% of average. All of that eventually melts, fills our reservoir. So how are things looking? Well, kind of some good news, and then also some news that we want to look a little bit more closely at. First of all, Shasta and Oroville, plenty of capacity. Not planning to really release much water right now because we can keep storing it, hopefully at a later date. Start those nice slow metering of water coming down through the valley. Now, Folsom's a smaller reservoir, so it's going to fill up faster and it's going to drain faster. So we have some flexibility with that. While releases have already started at Folsom, and that's to make way for some of that runoff coming in because there's not as much capacity to have that relief there coming at a faster rate. Now, in terms of New Melones and Don Pedro, we're at about 30 to 60% capacity right now. So everything is coming up. That's the great news on this. We just don't want it to come up too fast, especially for some of those smaller reservoirs. So our mountain conditions, you can see here, pretty much rain and snow mixed right through the week. We'll have rain throughout the foothills, and then for the coast, it's going to be rain right across the board. The other area that looks a little bit concerning here is going to be the Santa Cruz Mountains because of the position of some of these atmospheric rivers, how they'll slide their way southward, and those areas tend to be very vulnerable. So we're going to watch right along Highway 1 as this water continues to just fall from the sky and give us a lot of inundation here. So here comes our atmospheric river, and you can see very wet conditions right through the middle of this week. As we head into our Friday, Saturday system, another one that's in the pipeline. We'll get a bit of a break, and then we're right back at it for next week as well. With multiple rounds, this is going to give us close to about 3 to 6 inches of rain total from the coast through the valley, 7 to 10 inches possible for rain in the foothills. Looking at the longer range, it's going to be likely cooler, but much wetter. That takes us nearly to the end of January. So flooding concerns continue here as we continue to mark our 10-day forecast with multiple rounds of rain. We will be watching the flooding conditions. And as always, you can get sandbagging and emergency information on abc10.com.